folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome back to the history of the Dice Tower. This time we're talking about the year 2010. 2010 has actually my fewest notes on this year, and 2010 may be the hardest episode to get through, but I will do my best to go through this year because this was the year that we came to America. In 2010, in 2009, I decided that we were going to leave Korea and come back to America. I had no idea what we were going to do. I had no idea about the future of the Dice Tower. That was really kind of secondary to my thoughts. Really, my first thoughts were, where was I going to go in America? But I still wanted to make Dice Tower better. We had gotten so many complaints about the quality of our videos. I'm sure that will always happen. At some point, like now, we're in 1080 HD. Someone will be like, why aren't your videos in 4K? I'm like, all right, we'll move it up. But at this point in time, my videos were pretty low quality. So I got a brand new camera and started doing reviews in that. And that was a lot of fun. And because of this new camera, I started doing various new things. A couple major things happened at this point in time. First of all, because I got the camera, this camera had a slow motion feature on it where you could record something in slow motion. And I thought that would be fantastic. I would love to use this for board games. What in board games does slow motion? There's really nothing. And I thought, what if I poured out all the pieces on the table and then we record it in slow motion? That'd be pretty neat. Let's do that for a couple videos. So the first one I did it in was zombie dice. The very first component drop. And then I did it for the next video and the next, and it just became a thing. Now you would know, I already talked about in past episodes how whenever people were like, oh, you shouldn't do that, then I tend to do that thing more because I think it was fun and silly. And this silliness also came to a head because at the same time I was getting a little tired of this lack of theme in many of these games, and I really hammered it home in my Vasco da Gama review. And I got a lot of negative feedback from people who said, you were angry in that video, and you got to be careful what you do. And I thought, oh, okay, feedback on the internet. And I was out somewhere and I saw Tiger Woods apologizing for the misdeeds that he did. And I thought, what if I made a fake apology video? And so I did. I scripted it out, wrote it for a long time, got my family to help me. Spent a lot of time on that video, actually. I have recently become aware of the fact that a cameraman has caught me on film saying things about Vasco da Gama, of which I am not proud. I see now that those remarks have really caused great harm to Vasco da Gama itself and to the people who really enjoy the game. And the response was pretty good for the most part. Some people were still mad, and I'm still not sure I'm welcome back in Portugal. But for the most part, and it was just silly fun, and that was where we wanted to go with the show. And I thought, well, maybe I should do more of these silly fun humor things as time goes by. I did a series on Heroescapes where I did a 5-part series talking about Heroescape, one of my favorite games, which it was still in print at that point in time, and talking about my excitement for it and showing all sorts of things, showing how the pieces I could throw them against the wall. And I said, maybe the series and things like this, maybe the channel doesn't have to be just reviews and top 100s. Maybe we can do other things on the channels. So having this HD camera, and because we were moving, right? So we're getting ready to move. And I'm looking for a job, I'm trying to find a place to go, but also realize that movie, I'm gonna need to get rid of a ton of games. So I got rid of games left and right, got rid of them in my game group, took them to board game cafes, handed them out, just tons of games went in all different directions. They all stayed in Korea, and even then I still packed up a ton of them and sent them back to America. And if you look, there is a geek list on Board Game Geek which describes all this in detail about the whole moving process, and there is something cathartic about taking your whole game collection, packing it up. I put games inside of games and pieces inside of games and dice inside of games, and then came back and unpacked everything and set up my whole game room. I threw out so many game inserts because I needed to fit games inside of games, and it was just an interesting experience, that whole moving thing. It wasn't perfect. In fact, when we landed in America, getting our stuff cost us extra money. It was a kind of a pain to move, but at the same time I was culling my collection down to a very manageable number. Now, finding a place. So I started sending out feelers all over the place and using my connections at college, looking for places, and I looked at Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indianapolis and and California. And I won't lie, the proximity to games and gaming in general is something that I thought of as I went and did this, but it wasn't the first and foremost. I was looking for a place that had a job. After a while, I thought, why am I not telling people that I can teach? Maybe I can do a hybrid job of working at a church and teaching. And lo and behold, I found a position in Homestead, Florida, which is the city I'm standing in now. I'm still here. So I found this position at a church, and incidentally, they needed 2 people. They needed a youth director, and they needed that youth director to teach Bible at the school, and they also needed a youth director for the middle school who also could teach math. Hey, that's me. And by not a ton of coincidence, but by some, Sam Healy, my co-host, was chosen for the other one. So now, even though he had gone to California, he was going to Florida, I was going to Florida, we were heading to the same place. I said, well, there you go. That keeps things interesting. And so we were going back to Florida. So we packed everything up and we moved back to Florida. There's a lot of things, a lot of involvement in that move. We landed in Florida. Gaming was the farthest thing from my mind at that point in time because I had to move into a new house and all sorts of interesting things happened. The house that we were renting, the landlord of that house was shot and killed because it was it's not because Miami is that dangerous, but because he was someone who went and helped people in time of need, and he went to help somebody and that person took advantage of him. And because of that, we couldn't move into the house right away. All kinds of things happened, so we were stuck living with other people. And it's like, oh, we want to move. I looked for the local game group. I found the local game group. There was a store, the Sunshine Adventure Gaming Store, which was not that great of a store, but the gaming group there was nice and friendly, and I got to meet a lot of them. In fact, I met Z Garcia around this time period. So because we moved in June, I couldn't make Origins, and this was one of the few Origins that I missed. I missed a couple, but this was one of the few. So Eric did it alone. Now, me and Eric had done Origins together the previous year. Eric came, did a podcast, did a great job, fantastic job. And this was good for me because this was the first time in Dice Tower history where the Dice Tower was essentially not being manned by myself. And I was handing the reins over completely to somebody else, and it worked. And I'm excited about that. Still am excited about that because I like the Dice Tower. It should never be just about Tom Vasel, but about a ton of people involved in gaming. So we came down to Florida. We moved down to Florida. Now, before we moved, my wife got pregnant again, which was a surprise to no one. But after we got to Florida, I made a video because we found out it was a boy. So we made some excitement and some silliness about that. I don't think boys are better than girls by any means. My own son proves that to me consistently. But we were very excited about it because after 6 daughters, it was nice for a change, right, to have a boy. So we came down here. The video channel started to grow, but there was one big change when we came. The number of games that showed up to my house grew by an exponential of 5 easily. See, sending a game to Korea costs as much as the game itself, but publishers still sent them to me because they wanted them to be reviewed. But I would do all sorts of tricks. I would come back from Origins with 2 full suitcases. I would have my friends in the Army get games sent to them because it was cheaper to go to the APO box. So I do what I could, but it was expensive. As soon as I had an address in America where publishers could send games, boom, a tsunami of games started showing up, and I was like, whoa, I'm gonna have to really start reviewing fast to get all these reviews done. So all this happened. We came. We finally were able to move into our house that we rented. We finally got things going. My wife was getting more and more pregnant. It was a son. We were excited about that. The Dice Tower seemed to be going well. I was able to use board games in my classes at school. I was able to jump in and teach math. I really enjoyed my jobs of doing that, and I also have the Dice Tower as a hobby on the side. And then one day my wife's water broke, which is usually kind of an exciting thing because that means it's time for the baby to come, but it was 2 months before Jack was supposed to be born. So we rushed her to the hospital, of course, and the hospital had to make the decision whether to keep the baby in her, and she stayed at the hospital for 2 months, or to deliver the baby, and they chose to deliver the baby 2 months early. Now this was a little worrisome, but you know, it is what it is. And Jack was born just a couple pounds, really, and hooray, he was born healthy. Unfortunately, his health lasted all of just a few hours. I woke up in the morning of the next day at 2 or 3 in the morning. My wife called me panicking saying that the doctors did not know if Jack would make it through the night, that they gave him a 50% chance. He had contracted meningitis. It happens when newborn babies come. Sometimes they just get sick like that. And so I rushed back to the hospital because we lived in Homestead, and because of the difficulty, my wife wasn't able to have the baby in Homestead, so it was up in Miami. So it was like a 35, 40-minute drive all the time to go up there. I went up there, and they admitted Jack into the NICU, and I had to go in, and the kids, I forget how it was, a few of the kids were able to see him at that point through a glass window, and that was the extent of it. And they said that the chance of him surviving isn't very high. So that was, you know, a bit of a shake to the system, right? That's something that you're not expecting. You know, you don't think about that, I guess, as much. I had so many kids at this point that losing one had never really occurred to me. When we, you know, as the weeks went by, and we told everybody this, and this was an amazing thing to me, because the amount of letters, the amount of emails, the amount of support we got from Dice Tower fans was humongous, tremendous. We just got so much feedback and so much positive thoughts and prayers, and we really appreciated that. And Jack survived. He just kept, from week to week, and he kept getting better. And I can't tell you, there were just so many moments. And I was still reviewing board games and playing board games, but like my life was focusing around Jack, where, you know, he was kept in a hospital that we didn't live at because we were 40 minutes away, so we drive up there every day, me or my wife, to go see him and kind of look at him and maybe, you know, just be in the same room. And I remember the first day I got to hold him. That was such a moment, right? You know, getting to hold him. I came home, showed my wife, and she just wept because she was jealous because she hadn't held him, but then she immediately drove to the hospital to go and hold him herself. And he seemed to be getting better as time went by. And then Christmas came, and so many Christmas cards. His whole room was filled with Christmas cards that people sent. Fantastic, and we appreciate them. And we had so much hope that he was getting better. But then he took a turn for the worse. There was more holes in his brain than there was brain at that point. The disease really ate at his brain, and he passed away at the very beginning of 2011. And you can go see it. I made a video online about it, and you can see more about that. And when that happened, I was a bit devastated. Here we had come to America. We were so happy to have a son. We were so happy, you know, there was all these major changes, and this was just kind of a devastating thing for us. But again, the outpouring of support, when we went to that funeral, we streamed it live so that people could see it, because the internet was like a big part of things. You know, I always tell people that Facebook and all that stuff is kind of a poor substitute for real life interaction, and it is. You know, the real life relationships matter much more than sometimes people saying, "Oh, I hope things are better." You know, but at the same time, the online thing was a big deal. People sent cards, they emailed, they called, and it was a big deal. And flowers were sent, and it was just a big thing. And even bigger than that, I had no money. I was really poor at that point in time. I had no money to bury him or anything. And a few people took it on themselves. They started an auction on Board Game Geek and raised thousands and thousands of dollars. And that just helped us out so much in that time frame. In fact, it helped us out so much so that I decided that I was going to pay that forward. And so I started the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund. And you can see the top half of the logo here. When you see that logo, that's a Jack Vasel Memorial Fund in memory of Jack. It's not part of the Dice Tower. It's a separate organization. I do that on purpose to keep money separate and everything else. I'm the president of both, but I and a group of different people from the industry, we get together and people apply to the fund, and if they need it, we send them money. And each year we have some auctions and raise money for that. And the people who ran the auction for me helped set that up. Some lawyers dedicate their time to putting this together. And it was really good to see the community coming. And so at this time, I said, I'm going to keep doing the Dice Tower. I cannot stop now. Look how much the people here were there in my time of need. I like doing these reviews. Yes, I'm getting very busy at school, and I'm getting very busy at church, but I just enjoyed playing games with people in the area. I enjoyed making reviews. And so while 2010 is not my favorite year of my life, I will always remember it. I still remember Jack. I still have a box of cards that maybe if you're watching this, you said what? I still have that stuff. And we're able to see the good that has come out of that. And God was helping us through that time too. And so moving to America was not quite what I expected at that point in time. But Homestead, we're here. We're still here. And things are going to change even more in 2011, but we'll save that for the next History of the video. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching History of the Dice Tower. See you next time.